Welcome to the Meltzone podcast. This is episode 52. I'm Tom.
And I'm Stefan. And on today's episode, we are talking about our plans for, or not plans for this year's Formnext. Thingiverse latest data breach and how they poorly handled it. Prusa's ideas of rebranding their Prusa printer platform, where you can also share 3D printed models, and also maybe you get the chance to sell your own creations there. And well, staying on the topic of Prusa, a recently melted heater block of a Prusa printer that looks like a piece of solder, and we talk about how that could have happened and how that could be prevented.
And we've got two more resin topics today. We talk about a not quite unnecessary invention of putting two vats and two print platforms on one big printer. Is that useful? I think so. I think that is not quite as unnecessary as the creator's name implies. And we also have a high-speed SLA resin printer that uses something that is similar to Carbon's proprietary clip technology, but not quite. And it manages to print 280 millimeters of print height per hour, which is insane. Stefan, I can hear you. That is good. That is good. Your voice seems to work for now.
Yeah, it's currently still working. I'm already noticing that my neck is getting sore again and my nose is closing again. Yeah, I had a cold for basically the last three and a half weeks, and I'm really fed up with it.
Yeah, let's just hope you don't get COVID on top of that too.
I hope not, but a good friend of mine just caught it like 2 weeks ago, also fully vaccinated. So he's okay again, but it was still kind of a rough week for him.
I bet. Yeah, it's not something to joke about. You're not going to Formnext, are you?
I have decided, especially with that incident again, to go to Formnext this year. I would not really like to go there, not to go to Formnext. I heard that there are really a lot of booths from different vendors, so it's not like just a reduced version. Many said that like their booths are not going to be as big probably as the last year's, but they are really well doing it this year. But nah,
I don't know. So I looked into what's the other one in the UK? Whatever.
It's
TCT. Yeah,
TCT.
I looked into that and I was like, not really feeling it. But then I saw Formnext actually is running the event as 2G, so only vaccinated and people who've had COVID before and are cured basically. Only those are allowed to enter. But then looking at how many cases we've got in Germany, it's like so that the 2G rule was what made me consider going, because I'm like, well, at least they're doing like the reasonable thing. But then I was still like, I've got my grandparents here. I don't want to spread it. I don't want to catch it. It's like I want to go, but not at any cost. So
well, you could say that you're still gonna be wearing a mask all of the time,
for sure.
But if you want to do interviews and things like that, there's still the occasions where you don't wear it, and of course, like the chance of getting it is small, but it's still there. And having a baby which is unvaccinated and of course doesn't wear a mask and things like that, it just makes me feel uncomfortable, and I'm passing out on it, and I'll hopefully be there next year.
Yeah. So maybe the consideration for me is like if I get my third shot before that in time, perhaps. Yeah. Because for me it's almost been 6 months since the second one. So.
But Formnext is in 2 weeks, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. So it would have to be this week, basically. We'll see. I was feeling good about going. I was feeling enthusiastic about like, oh, look, this is reasonable, and now cases are going up again, and I'm like,
I was really hoping to finally go to CET in Las Vegas.
CES.
Sorry, not CET, CES in Las Vegas at the beginning of next year. I don't know if it's even happening. I guess it's happening.
It is. I just got an invite email from some company.
Okay. And since US finally opened the border again for Europeans, I thought I might be able to do that, but I think the situation's not going to be better. But I just would really like to visit the US again soon. And
just in general, getting out and traveling somewhere would be really nice again for once. And I know we're going to have people comment like, just do it. It's not that bad. And it's like, the thing is, if you can't enjoy it, if you've always got that bitter taste in your mouth, it's not the same. You can't just go, oh, just ignore it. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Right. So since we need to be careful of not destroying your voice here, let's just jump right into topics, shall we?
Yes, definitely.
Number
one really interesting one.
Yeah.
Or, well, not really interesting one, but one which is, how should I put it? It was kind of expected, but it's still really bad. So if you guys have or had a Thingiverse account, you might have already got an email that there was a data breach at Thingiverse.
Yeah. To put it lightly.
Well, there was a data breach and it wasn't handled that well.
Yeah, so I guess we should preface this with it's not just a Thingiverse breach, it's actually a breach on MakerBot's side, where all the MakerBot accounts got leaked, essentially. So what happened is somebody got access to the database of Thingiverse users or MakerBot accounts, essentially, and basically extracted usernames, emails, hashed passwords. That's still got an asterisk to it. PayPal details, like all sorts of basically
direct messages,
DMs, yes, unencrypted DMs between users. So, there's two asterisks to this. First of all, that breach happened in 2018. So any data newer than this did not get exposed in this breach. It might get exposed in the next breach. I don't know when that's happening. But right now, the data is from 2018. So anything since then is not affected. Also, passwords. The passwords were not stored in clear text, so that is at least something. But MakerBot, Thingiverse originally stored your passwords as, I believe it was SHA-1. Unsalted hashes, which basically means it is your clear text password, because for those standards, checksum algorithms, basically, there exists tables to just get from the hashed, abstracted version of the password to your plain text password. So, like, don't consider your password safe just because it's hashed. However, if you've logged in since I think it's 2015, 16, 17, if you've logged in since then, your password hash has been replaced by something that is a bit more secure, by bcrypt password hash. So theoretically, that should be more okay, but it's still your hash password still got out there. So yeah, the spicy thing here is it's not just Thingiverse. It's not just your Thingiverse accounts. Your unpublished files also were exposed. So unpublished files, DMs, usernames, PayPal details, hash password, all that is out there. But also, if with the same MakerBot account you've got a MakerBot printer connected, access to that printer, essentially, from what I understand, could also have been compromised. So the people basically can remote control your printer if they have access to your account, if you've signed your printer into that account. So it would be a really good time to change your password, not just on MakerBot, MakerBot account or Thingiverse, but also anywhere else you use that same password. You should probably change it. Thankfully, I think I was using randomized passwords back then already, but I don't know if in 2018 I already did. So I basically spent the day changing everything, which was fun. Fun, but overdue. Yeah. So
yeah, I put it in a way. It's just like another nail in the coffin of Thingiverse. So last time we already talked about like Thingiverse replacing affiliate links from like your affiliate link to their own. This is just another thing, and of course it happened, but I guess the way they handled it was really weird, because in the beginning they did not comment on anything. And then a couple of days later they said, there was just one small security breach where less than 500 accounts are really affected. But later it turned out that it was basically a whole database backup.
Yeah. So one service that I can really recommend for this is Have I Been Pwned, which is by what's the guy's name? I don't know. But Have I Been Pwned basically is a website, a service that keeps track of all the leaked usernames, passwords that they can find on the internet somewhere in some shared database. And you can basically enter your email or your username, and you can check whether that username or email has been exposed in some breach already. And it's going to list all the breaches that your email was found in. You can also enter your password if you trust I Have Been Pwned. I think I do trust them enough to enter my password in there, and it's going to check the password if it's ever been found anywhere. It's not going to tell you where it's been found, because that would be, privacy, that would be not the greatest move to do, but it tells you at least, hey, this password has been found somewhere. So the thing is, when MakerBot was saying, well, it's just 500 users that were affected, Have I Been Pwned had already sent out emails to a couple 100,000 users, basically. So people were commenting on Twitter like, hey, well, there was a poll by Matt Stoltz, I believe, did that, where it was asking like, hey, were you affected, were you not affected? And a couple thousand people voted yes on that poll at the time when MakerBot said, well, it's just 500, maybe. The other thing is also that breach happened in 2018, and I don't think MakerBot took any action back then already. It's so that the data was extracted in 2018, but it's not been in active circulation, so it's not been out there with the white hat, gray hat, black hat community. I guess somebody was just holding on to it. But I believe there was news of a breach somehow, but MakerBot wasn't really doing much about that. And also with the circulation of the data now, according to GDPR, they should have been way faster with responding. It was very obvious that the data was out there, and it was being shared around by the time that Have I Been Pwned has the data. It's out there. So MakerBot should have been much faster in noticing users, and just being honest about what happened and what got exposed, and they did not do that. That, I think, is the bigger issue, not the fact that the breach happened, because that happens. It's about how you handle it.
Yeah. And I guess I think I checked a couple of days ago, and there weren't any real... Yeah, so, for example, the latest update on the... Or not really update on the breach, the latest information on the breach, at least on Twitter, from Thingiverse, is still for clarification, the exposure affected a handful, less than 500 of real user data. The non-production, non-sensitive data include encrypted password, random salted, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, no update yet. And as I just said, just another nail to Thingiverse coffin. I'm honest, I'm still using Thingiverse for searching data, because sometimes it works quite well to find designs, because I guess it's still the largest collection of designs, but there should be the point when we and also any other creators should think about alternatives to Thingiverse.
Yeah, there is a neat import function into PrusaPrinters, into what is still called PrusaPrinters, because they probably are going to rebrand. Which again, you're tying yourself to a printer manufacturer, which obviously has a weird aftertaste. At least to me, like Prusa, of course, I like the Prusa products, but still, it's another manufacturer that you're now attached to. Though, of course, PrusaPrinters isn't exactly like exclusive to Prusa users. That's why the rebrand is happening, but still, like, it's another manufacturer. Something independent would be nice, but then again, who would have the resources to not just set up a file sharing site like that, but also to run it, to maintain it? Thingiverse just has the advantage of, hey, we were the first ones. We did it. Hey, Google. Nice. Thingiverse was just the first one. No! You're in flight mode. You can't even... Oh, no, you're not on flight mode. Okay. Sorry about that. Thingiverse have the big advantage. They were the first ones who had anything like that. And then I think... What's it called? You Imagine by Ultimaker were kind of the next ones, and then PrusaPrinters came along. But, like, not just creating that site, but also what PrusaPrinters are doing with the giveaways and contests, and just maintaining a community and making sure there's like something actively happening. That's probably impossible for anyone outside to do.
Well, there are alternatives. Thanks is currently sponsoring, like, I have the feeling, any 3D printing channel.
Right, they've had a sponsorship on my channel as well. One. Yeah.
And they are... I don't know how they are financing that, or do they have ads on there?
Well, I've got ad block. I wouldn't see them.
Yeah. So they are, I guess, at the moment, a site that is scraping through other libraries of 3D printed models, and then just presenting them on their side with the advantages of a search all over those services, and then a search for size and for similar shapes and things like that. So they're adding a bit of benefit. My Mini Factory is there. I have been using My Mini Factory from time to time, though it always... I don't know. It always felt a little bit cluttered, and I am not sure where I should put My Mini Factory.
So you've been using My Mini Factory to find models to download and to print?
Both.
Or to share your own stuff?
Both. But like not a lot. My Mini Factory, they also have a nice approach where they say, okay, they are checking all of the models if they are printable. So you can only find supposedly printable models on their site. They have a vast collection of like purchasable models there, which is something that I don't know. I think no any other site really. Well,
if you have like the smaller sites, Gumroad and stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
But they have a really nice collection there. So, and they're financing themselves over ads. They have partnerships with 3D printing manufacturer, and they have also like the sold models where they are getting part of the revenue, and also some money from the subscription service you need to subscribe to if you want to sell your models on my Mini Factory. Which
sort of brings us to our next small point here. What should we think about that? So the way that my Mini Factory handles it is kind of weird. So typically when you sell something, for example, on Amazon, Stefan, you've got some experience with your heat set inserts. You basically pay a fee per item sold. So if you have shipping, like you pay a rate for shipping, or if you ship yourself, you just pay a percentage of your revenue. Kind of the same as eBay. Any service basically works like that. But my mini factory also charges a $25 $25 a month fee just to list your models on the site. So you've not sold anything by then, you've not made any revenue by then. It is $25 just to list your models on the site, just as an access fee, basically. Which begs the question: is that something that's I'm kind of missing the word here for that, but I don't want to say reasonable, sensible. Is that the nice way to do it? Because it is. When we talked about this topic before, I used the word predatory. It is preying on smaller creators, basically, where they're taking their cut no matter if you sell anything or not. And you extrapolated that to, what was it, $300 a year, basically. That is quite the chunk that you're giving to my mini factory just to have your stuff listed there, just as a gatekeeper fee.
I guess there are, well, it for once prohibits, I guess, small creators from just starting selling their designs, which is on the one hand bad because they don't start their own business there. On the other hand, it prohibits everyone from starting to sell all of the designs, which is maybe good for the community because more designs are available there for free. It might also be a sensible way of my mini factory of preventing like minimum payouts to thousands and thousands of creators who just thought, let's sell my design for $1, and they are selling like 3 designs a month, and then my mini factory has to deal with that. But honestly, it is reminding me of the models on YouTube, Twitch, etc., where you can't monetize your channel if you're under a certain size of viewership. It's basically the same on YouTube. What is it, 10,000 subscribers on YouTube now, plus a minimum view, or is it 1,000 now? I don't know. Plus a minimum view time per month that you have to even be applicable or to be able to apply to the YouTube partner program, which lets you monetize your stuff. Same on Twitch, where you have to stream like three days a week to even move up to affiliate, where you can sort of monetize your stuff. It feels a lot like that, where it's preying on the smaller creators to give their stuff away for free, and then the big guys basically get the big payouts because my mini factory takes a relatively small cut of your revenue. I think it's 10%. 10%, earn 90% from sales. So it's basically smaller creators subsidizing the larger ones, essentially, which is convenient for the platforms, right? It's convenient for YouTube, Twitch, my mini factory, because like you're saying, they don't have to deal with like mini payouts, and they don't have thousands of partners and business partners. It's just a couple, but they make all the money now. Understandable, but not a fan, to be honest. Yeah. Well, I'm not that much of a designer, so I can't really use that that program. But as you just said, it's bad for the small creators. On the other hand, if you really have a talent and start selling your stuff over there, maybe this program is even beneficial, because you could, my mini factory could say, like many others do, we take 30% cut of the revenue, but we don't have any monthly subscription, which, there's a break-even point at some point where the one program gives you in the end more money than the other one. I have no clue what the bigger designers are making using that service. Did I ever purchase? I think I never purchased something on my mini factory because I'm not that much into like the figurines game. I
would assume that it's that it's another 1%er thing, where really only 1% of the creators on there would reach that break-even point, where a 30% cut would be worse for them. Did you see the Twitch data breach? Where all the Twitch streamers' revenues were exposed?
Yes.
And it's like, oh yeah, what was it? The Dungeons and Dragons stream channel? Basically, they're making so much money, but people are seeing that where it's like, oh yeah, some channels are making a decent living, and honestly, the amount that they're making isn't that much. Like, managers make way more than that easily, and we don't bat an eye for them. But again, I think that the real message from the breach was like, yeah, some people make a decent living off of that, but most people make almost nothing for the effort that they put into it. Yeah. And I think it is very, very similar for my mini factory here.
Yeah. On the other hand, I think it's also a good opportunity for the ones who want to have these models, that they, for example, don't have to subscribe to Patreon tiers, which some creators are using to monetize their designs. Because, I don't know, for some creators, you have to pay $20-30 a month to get access to their creations. But if you're just interested in one of the designs, such a platform gives you the opportunity to just...
Your audio is
$3, $5, $10.
Wow, your audio was just completely gone.
Okay.
Let me see if Stefan can figure that out. Yeah, I guess what I'm gonna be, it's back now. I guess what's going to be interesting is how PrusaPrinters implement that, because that is something that they have announced that we're going to do. And from how I judge their business practices, it's not going to be like that. It's probably going to be a cut, if at all. The thing is, if you take out the platform as kind of your seller, your business partner, because the way that I believe it works on my mini factory is you're buying from my mini factory, and my mini factory sends you an invoice for that. If you're taking out the platform as like the intermediary for that, and you're just saying, hey, here's a PayPal link, and you're buying from the creator, and we're just a platform that's kind of facilitating that deal, you don't have to take a cut. But also on the person selling anything, it is more effort for people selling stuff, because now you have to deal with writing an invoice for every single purchase, dealing with the VAT, dealing with all those things that now add a significant burden to you if you're not set up for that, if you don't have the invoicing system and the business management system for that does that automatically. So it's interesting to see which route they're going to go. By the way, that is one of the reasons why I don't have why Patreon is so convenient for many people, and I don't have like a hey, support me through PayPal link. I thought about setting up something like that just through WordPress. You can do that. You can add like a subscription platform and basically get this exact same functionality as Patreon, but without the Patreon fees. But it's just, well, now you have 1,000 customers that you have to write an invoice to every year or every month, and it just adds so much overhead. So again, going to be interesting how Prusa handled that situation.
Yeah. So maybe on that mark again, I think shortly after the Thingiverse data breach was uncovered, Joseph tweeted that they are thinking about rebranding PrusaPrinters, that it's not that closely connected to Prusa anymore, but they still want to offer a platform for 3D printing files. And he also teased that they're thinking about exactly that model that you can buy, or that you can sell your models on the PrusaPrinter platform. We are not sure when that's gonna happen, but there's constant development happening on PrusaPrinters, so it's gonna be fun to see.
Yeah, one of the things I've already teased about adding is the social media links. They're just doing small stuff like that the whole time. Somebody was it Repcore who said like, hey, we would like to have.
It was Uncle Jesse, I guess.
Uncle Jesse, yeah. Can we have like a dedicated section for social media links in our profile? And they were like, yep, sure, we're gonna do it. That's the way that things should be, right?
Yeah.
Let's see where that goes. And actually, what was Repcore is our next topic, the melted heater block. That also involves Prusa again. So what happened there is that Alan, I believe is his first name, bought a brand new pre-assembled hot end from Prusa, and it melted on him. Yeah. And you've seen the photos. They look
I have
scary.
seen the photos. If you guys are only listening, you can check the link in the description. There's some pictures on Twitter, but yeah, Repcore posted pictures of a heater block where the nozzle melted out and the heater block just looks like a big glob of molten solder. Yeah. And
so the nozzle is encased in like a ball of whatever the heater block material is, and then you can see like it looks like the heater block is like a skin, and it sucked the material out underneath, and there's like a big spike coming out, like a probably 1 inch long spike out of the heater block where the nozzle used to be. Your audio's gone again. Your audio's
totally
back.
Gone again. Okay.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. It's not like we're doing this for the first time. Sorry. We're still noobs at this.
Where have you been?
So how could this happen? So I guess two theories that were passed around. So Repcore said he just set the temperature to 250 degrees, walked away for a second, and he came back to this thing being molten. Either it was actually an overtemperature situation, or the alloy was weird. Though,
I think since people were asking, hey, can you just use a soldering iron and try to see if you can get the material to melt, he actually tried it out, and it wasn't solder in the end. So I guess
to be fair, like the test that he did with like the small solder iron tip, like it might have maybe shined up one spot, but it's probably not. It probably didn't put enough energy into the block to actually melt it at the temperature that it was set to. So,
of course, but if you're just taking a look at aluminum and aluminum alloys, none of these are probably in the melt point range of like 250 degrees Celsius, where he set his printer to work at.
Yeah.
But it is still really weird. And it begs the question, because I guess he also stated that he hasn't seen any thermal runaway warning and anything like that.
Yeah, and also none of the plastic parts around the hot end, because the Prusa actually does enclose the heater block quite tightly. None of the plastic parts around that melted or deformed at all. They still look pristine. Fan shroud.
I think I have seen pictures of the fan shroud being at least a bit deformed, but
he doesn't have a sock on the block either, so it would have.
He doesn't have a sock on the heater.
Well, not anymore.
So if you take a look at the picture where you see the nozzle in his hand, just right, I guess you can spot the nozzle. The part cooling fan nozzle being deformed and the upper part bent down. Because there's nothing there anymore.
Don't have the same shroud at hand, so I can't tell exactly how it's supposed to look.
But there aren't any obvious signs of something being burnt there. Of course, the sleeves for the heater and also for the thermistor, they are glass fiber with, I think, silicone impregnation or something like that. So they should be able, to cope with some heat.
Usually at those temperatures, though, you would see some discoloration. You would see some toasting, because silicone, while it is a very high temperature material, it does start to degrade at those temperatures.
Yeah.
So
it is really weird.
Basically, you're saying it was an actual thermal runaway that the printer did not catch. But can those 30 watts heater cartridges even reach those temperatures?
I think they're 40 watts, but
did this default for E3D used to be 30. They might have switched though. With the,
but I think Prusa is using 40 watts for quite a while. Well, anyways,
there was something with the heater fan cooling down the hot end too much. The print cooling fan cooling down the hot end too much. So they did something there. I don't know if they switched heater powers or we did something else. Yeah.
Wasn't it because you complained on the Mark 1 review that heat up times are so slow?
No, that there was. I don't know if it's the Mark III or Mark II, but I remember that there was a real issue. Heat up times don't think were that bad because the bed always takes longer anyways. But there was a problem when you had the part cooling fan going. The hot end would get to 225 or 230 degrees, but it would be heating at full power the entire time. So when you were printing something like PETG that you would do at 240, 245 maybe, and you would use the part cooling fan, the hot end would actually drop, and sometimes it would cut out because it's like, well, heating failed. There's something wrong with your hot end, but it was just that there was too much energy being extracted out of the hot end.
I just checked. It's 40 watts.
Okay.
Still 40 watts. Oh, it's hard to say. So Prusa, so the fan shroud for cooling the cold side of the pot end, if you want to call it that way, is enclosed in a way that no air is really bleeding onto the heater block. And it's kind of confined below all of these parts. So there isn't really any like active cooling or active convection. So there is the opportunity that thing heats up quite a bit. But with just 40 watts of energy,
the thing is,
I don't know if
your heat break is also taking out quite a bit of energy. So the way it's been explained to me is the amount of energy you're using to melt your plastic is about the same as the amount of energy that's just being dissipated through the heat break. Of course, that energy, you're not intentionally dissipating that because you don't want to just waste energy, but it's just because you need some mechanical strength, and the stronger you make it, the thicker your material is, the more energy you pull out. The thing is also, the hotter your heater block is, the more energy you are actually pushing through that heat break, because your delta T is rising, so your heat stream through that heat break increases. So what I'm wondering is like, so the order of magnitude of energy that's being passed through the heat break is like 5 to 10 watts, somewhere in that neighborhood. So what I'm wondering is, if your delta T is now not 200 degrees, but it's 400 degrees, the heat break should have a significant cooling effect on the block too. So that, I guess, to a point, that is somewhat of a runaway protection, even if unintentional, but it should be some PTC like behavior where your temperature rises slower the hotter everything gets. Honestly, I don't think the heaters can melt a block, but there's only one way to find out.
Try it out. So I just checked. So the melting point of, for example, a 6061 aluminum is 650 degrees Celsius, which is a lot. Maybe it's a combination of, but that would be quite a coincidence. Combination of a really bad alloy and something weird happening on the machine. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there was a failure with, maybe there was a failure with the PSU, that the voltage increased, which, like by squaring, increases the power of the heater. And at least to some extent, the normal electronics should be fine of regulating that increased voltage down to still work normally. So maybe that should have triggered thermal runaway protection. I'm not sure. It's all just.
I believe the Prusas do have voltage monitoring on the power supply show, so they should have caught that. The thing is, if it doesn't catch over temperature, like something's seriously wrong already. Because typically there is just a hard limit set in firmware. If the hardness is, I think, over 280 or 290 degree in the Prusa, it just goes like, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm shutting myself off. Actually, you know what I can try? I can try and see how long it takes to heat up just a regular Prusa, and just get a feel for like how fast the temperature rises at those upper temperatures. Let me do that real quick. I'm gonna load in. We're gonna pull out the PLA. I'm probably gonna try that to hell, but yeah, you go ahead, get started on the next topic, and I'm gonna set this print up real quick.
Will you be still connected to audio? Yeah, give it a try. I guess it's all just speculation at the moment, and I'm really hoping that Prusa is also open with the results of the investigation, because this is something like seriously bad that can happen. It just for once shows again that you probably should not let your printer run unprotected, unsupervised. And of course, don't have anything flammable next to it. The unsupervised printing, it's, of course, everyone says that, but if we're being honest, printers are usually in a different room, and if you have a 30-hour print job, you won't be like sitting next to your machine all of the time. I also don't really recommend that due to the fumes and everything coming from your machine. Anyways,
recommendation for that, this week's video. Not told you about that. You guys all know the humble Raspberry Pi to run Octoprint on? Well, guess what? These are freaking expensive. These are $110 if you want to get the 4 gig version. You can just use an old phone to run Octoprint on, and it works fantastically. So I tried Octo 4a, and it's going to be this week's video, which is a really simple install on Android. It uses the phone's main camera as a webcam. It runs Octoprint with full plugin support and everything, and even a 5-year-old phone. This is an LG G6 with a janky back on it because this used to be broken. This is as fast as Raspberry Pi 4 in real life performance. So if you have an old phone, just use that. There's no excuses anymore to not run Octoprint and just monitor it. This is all in one. You just need like an adapter to charge and get the USB port out, and that's it. So just a quick tease of that.
Something really interesting I wanted to do for a while. I do run Home Assistant at home, and Home Assistant lets you integrate, for example, smoke detectors. And I have some, I think they are Zigbee smoke detectors in my office. And what you can do, for example, if a smoke detector is recognizing smoke, you can, for example, turn off a Wi-Fi or a Zigbee connected plug on your wall, outlet on your wall, which just turns the machine off. It will definitely not always prevent you from something burning down, but taking the electricity away from the machine is, I guess, already a first step of trying to prevent something really bad happening. There is actually a system, but I did some research and I've only found it in the US. It's a smoke detector that is connected to to an outlet or to just a
so it's like a ready built setup basically.
It just works with 120 volts. I think you can find it on 3D Upfitters or something like that.
It doesn't sound like it's a particularly complex setup.
No, it's totally simple. Because you just need to.
It's basically you have your alarm output, and it goes to turning off a relay. So
exactly,
that's it. Yeah.
There are things like that. I haven't found them working with like the 230 or 40 volts we use over here. But I would totally like to have something like that just in my print room, where I have an outlet where many of my printers are connected. If there's some smoke in the room, turn them off. That's a good start.
So that would be something nice. I just did the test on the Mark III, just heat up time to 295, which is the maximum temperature it lets me set it to, and took like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So honestly, well, to be fair, I don't know if I've turned up the voltage on this power supply. I don't know if this is running on like 26 volts or anything. Does this have the info on here? But yeah, voltage nope, 23.6 volts. So this is standard setup of a Mark III. Yeah, I honestly, I think it is totally viable that it actually melted the aluminum block. If it takes 2 minutes or so to reach 295, it's not going to take that much longer. It's maybe going to take 10 minutes to reach 600. Yeah. So viable, plausible, as Mythbusters would say.
So who's going to try that? Who's going to sacrifice one of the Mark IIs or Mark IIIs and see if
as long as it's on video, it's not that big of a deal, actually. I mean, you can replace the block, you can replace the heater and thermistor, because those are going to be toast.
Yeah. Still, if that happened, the question is really why did it happen? Because there should be checks in the firmware which should be like prioritized over everything else, that things like that don't happen. And fortunately, we don't see 3D printing fires that often. They happen, but there are protections working installed to try to prevent that. Of course, Prusa, they are not using like stock Marlin firmware. They have their own branch of Prusa Marlin. Yeah. So there are differences.
Which is largely a rewrite of many of the core parts in Marlin, because the Mark II, 3, Mark IIIs, they are still running the original at Mega, and they are running to like hard limits on that chip as far as processing power and memory space and all that goes. I'm just thinking about like how could this have been prevented if it actually was an over temperature situation. If it's a thermistor that is reading like it can totally happen that the thermistor itself reads a temp or a resistance value that is representative of a normal temperature. Like if it's just shorter than the right way, a thermistor can read 20 degrees all the time and the printer keeps heating. So of course you can have the like a temperature model in your firmware where the firmware knows like, okay, the hot end should be at this temperature roughly right now, which I believe Duet does. Actually, it does do that exact thing. It's got like
really aggressive, you
actually have to tune it to your hot end, otherwise you're just going to get errors all the time, and they make you tune it to your hot end just to make sure you're not just using like some super lenient default. That should be in there. Then just a check, hey, has the hot end been at 100% for too long? If the thermistor is in fact broken, like over temp, min temp, max temp is not going to do anything for you if it's broken in exactly the right way. And also I was thinking like maybe a hardware shut off where you actually have, if the firmware crashes, if it's actually a software problem, where you have a physical comparator, a comparing chip on there, that just checks, hey, is the resistance value of the thermistor below a certain value? And then it doesn't let the printer activate the MOSFET at all. Yeah. But again, if the thermistor is broken, that's not going to do anything. So really the only way I think to prevent this is to either have what E3D are doing with a PTC heating characteristic of their new ceramic heater, where it's going to taper off its heating power at a certain temperature So like even if your MOSFET fails, if the firmware fails, if everything fails, the heater is not capable of reaching that temperature. It's not physically capable of reaching that temperature unless you feed it more voltage, which like that's like not just a double fault, that's like a triple quad fault. That or having a second thermistor and using that for like a hardware shut off. But that's a lot of overhead, and I know Prusa like to do things in software and with like more sophisticated approaches in their programming instead of just adding more hardware to things. So yeah, I think that the easiest way to prevent that PTC heater, E3D Revo.
Yep.
Basically.
Looking forward to that. Do you know if that, well, if like the characteristic like tapers off, does that prevent faster heating to higher temperatures, or does that like taper off at temperatures which are above the temperatures that you would normally use a hot end, but still below like critical temperatures for melting something or for starting a fire?
So it shouldn't prevent you from reaching higher temperatures, but just by the nature of how like PTC curves work, it will slow down heat times at higher temps. It just depends on how they adjusted that behavior, whether it's the max temperature if you go full blast is like 550 degrees, or whether that max temperature is 350. I believe it should be rather high because the ceramic element should be able to handle relatively high temperatures. But yeah, it in either case, it will somewhat slow down your heat times. Though they did compensate by having less thermal mass and by going with a 40 watt heater by default. So I don't think it should be much of a problem in practice unless you're printing PEK all the time.
Yeah. But if you're doing that all of the time, you should probably think about a proper setup for that.
Probably, yeah. Do you have any info on whether you're getting a Revo for review yet?
I haven't heard anything from E3D so far.
Same here. It's kind of weirding me out the way that they're handling the launch, because now it's announced, but all you're seeing is like beta pre-release reviews of the thing, and
I think they said they're gonna start pre-orders in November. I don't know when they are going to sell it. I think I just read concerning their Obsidian nozzle that the Obsidian nozzle is gonna start selling at the beginning of next year. I don't know if that goes hand in hand. I don't think so, but they probably need to like ramp up production and have them in stock at E3D and also at all of the resellers. Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, supply chains right now are not great.
Horrible. No.
Yeah. I can maybe more delays.
Yeah, I can say that from my own experience. So we were sold out with our heat set inserts quite quickly, at least some of the sizes. People seem to enjoy the 1/4 inch camera inserts quite a bit, but reordering them at the moment. So for once, raw material prices increased horribly. Shipping rates from China at the moment are crazy.
Really? Okay.
So yeah,
the only thing I've noticed is that Deutsche Post is now charging $6 for every imported shipment, because they charge you for like, hey, there's VAT we have to collect. We have to collect 20 cents worth of VAT for you, but we're going to charge you $6 on top of that for the service.
Yeah. I guess sourcing parts at the moment can be kind of hard, and if there's just one single component in your system that you currently can't source, you can make a final product. But yeah, well, of course, E3D said that they implemented an in-house production method for their heaters, which is probably the most complex system. And the rest are just machine parts. So at least in that regard, they shouldn't be that much dependent. But of course, they are in Britain. They have, with Brexit, plenty of other problems at the moment. So
they're not in the easiest spot. That's for sure.
No, they're not in the easiest spot. I'm really looking forward to having getting my hands on Revo, because I have, in the last 3 weeks, I have probably changed 20-30 nozzles, and
what have you been doing, man?
So, well, at first I did the review of the Bondtech CHT nozzle. Then I'm currently printing with a beautiful Japanese 0.1 millimeter nozzle.
Those guys, yeah.
And then I did some DIY high flow nozzles, which I'm really looking forward to posting some things about.
That's gonna be interesting.
So I am changing nozzles like day in, day out. And even though it's kind of working, especially since I'm now really paying attention to use a lot of anti-seize on the threads, but the aluminum heater blocks are just not happy with like tightening, untightening, changing, things like that.
Can you just use a threaded insert? If he heats it enough, or if he heats it.
Unfortunately, we don't sell any M6 inserts.
Right.
Well, I maybe could use. Are there brass heater blocks? Well, they're copper heater blocks.
Revo is brass.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one, even though that would not solve my problems, because I cannot add any third-party nozzles in there. But at least like using different nozzle sizes will be quite a bit easier. We'll see. Maybe just one remark, because we talked about the seller fee on My Mini Factory before. Also, if you want to sell parts on Amazon, you need to have an Amazon sellers account that costs 20 or 30 euros a month. So it's not like with eBay.
eBay is free. Yeah, eBay just takes a cut.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think, like, would you make more or less revenue if you sell on Amazon versus selling on My Mini Factory? Well, revenue, not exactly, but profit. How much of a profit would that eat up? I would think that if you're selling on Amazon, you're actually making more profit than if you're selling on a niche site to a niche community with. But then you have no cost for. You have no material cost for selling a digital model, right? Okay,
well,
but
I did not want to say that you should sell your 3D designs on Amazon. I don't know if that would even be possible, but also Amazon charges you for a seller account. I don't know if it's how it is with Etsy and with other platforms, but I think that just helps prevent having a ton of people accounts there and selling like minimum numbers of products.
Yeah.
And with Amazon, you're also paying like fees for the parts you're selling, with including a cut of the revenue. You're paying for storage and stuff like that. So that also
they're actually giving you something for that. They're basically handling your entire logistics chain.
Everything.
Except for like you actually shipping your product to them. That's the one thing you have to do, and then everything else gets handled by them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's actual value that you're getting.
Indeed.
I guess one last thing to close out Revo, as far as like reviewing Revo goes, revoing. Revo. Of course, I would love to review Revo. Typically, my terms, and not typically, but my terms have a pretty hard formulation, wording in there. Where it's like anything that's pre-released, that's like pre-ordered, and that has not shipped to customers yet, I don't want to have a look at. So that includes pre-orders where there's been made promises to customers that we're going to ship you this if you pay us $50 now. But also products that aren't in their finished state yet. So I guess my ideal scenario would be getting a Revo that is final hardware, having an embargo to that final hardware to like be able to review it before, but publishing the review on release day or on shipping day or on whatever day that is appropriate. Because that is the way that is being done with tech in the tech world, basically. I don't know, Apple I think does it as well, but any big consumer electronics company does that, where they have they're gonna announce the product, but they ship out the product beforehand to reviewers under embargo. So they can show anything about it, they can say that they have it or whatever, but on release day, that review is out and they've had time to properly do it. Because what I too often see with hyped products in the 3D printing space is the product gets announced and then people rush to getting their hands on one and to producing the fastest, most hammered out impression of that product. Just because those first reviews, that's what counts. That's what's going to get you the most views, the most affiliate sales. That's what really pays well. And you can't really compete with a properly done review against anything that's like day one and done as fast as possible. Yeah. The longer you wait, the less worth it is to make a review about something, and just having an embargo on there and getting early access to hardware, I think that would kind of level the playing field and incentivize doing it properly. Right. Just to get that out there. Because that's something that's been kind of bothering me with Revo, where it's like, yeah.
Shall we close with 2 resin topics?
Absolutely, sir.
So the first one is from Unnecessary Inventions.
Though, to be honest, this one isn't as unnecessary as the name suggests.
No. Who is Unnecessary Inventions? I think he's pretty big on Instagram and does
TikTok,
Unnecessary Inventions. On
TikTok, YouTube Shorts.
I'm not even sure.
I believe that's like his thing.
Really cool guy, has lots of interesting ideas to come up with stuff that looks really interesting but is totally unnecessary. And one thing that he did together with Elegoo, I think, is a dual print platform, dual Vat Elegoo Saturn. So you have one screen below, you have a Vat that is separated in 2 individual chambers that you can fill with different resins. And then you have a printing platform that also has 2 individual, is split up in 2.
Basically, yeah.
So you can print 2 resins at the same time.
Yeah, you can print, of course, on a Saturn, you can print 2 different models just side by side, if the platform or the screen is big enough for it. But now you can use 2 different resins, and that basically splits it into like 2 Marses, right? The Saturn is less resolution, I believe, than an individual Mars 3-ish, but it's still gonna be enough. And yeah, this is a really well made product, I would almost call it, because typically the stuff that Unnecessary Invention does, it's 3D printed, it works, it's well done, but like not to this level. I think the vat is even machined aluminum. It looks like the platforms have like super solid standoffs. Everything's nicely machined. Yeah, how unnecessary is that? Would you use this?
Well, I haven't done a lot of resin printing in the past. I think, maybe for me it might even be interesting if you want to compare different resins. Well, if they work with the same exposure settings, you can be twice as fast. I think.
Or you could just use 2 printers.
Or you could use 2 printers. The question is, what is cheaper? Well, the thing is, what you could argue is that it's more repeatable because you use them on the same machine. I don't know. I think for most of us, it wouldn't really be that useful.
Yeah, it is somewhat unnecessary, but not that
because
much.
It just limits the size that you can print at.
Yeah.
And cleaning those.
To be fair, it is still the quick swap system. You can still take the print platforms off and just put your regular print platform back on, and the vat the same. It's 2 screws, so converting between them is not that big of a deal.
No, you're totally right. Yeah, you could just replace the print platform and the vat and re-level it and be good again.
Yeah.
Or not even re-leveling. Well.
Yeah, that's what the quick change system does, because the leveling head is in the part you take off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're saying like cleaning out the vats, it's 2 vats to clean out. But then again, if you can just keep your resins just filled in that vat, if you just keep them at hand, like you have less cleaning out to do essentially. That's what I liked about the Mars series, because I believe the vats were interchangeable for a while, and I could just have like different resin in a different vat, and you can just swap it if you have to actually pour out the resin and clean it out. And that is like one of the worst things about SLA printing. So if you can avoid that with that, it's cool. I feel like we're doing this wrong. We are discussing an unnecessary invention, and we're trying to reason with it.
Maybe even another thing. This thing would also, if you have a smaller part, would require less resin to print it, in a way that you don't have to fill like a whole resin vat, because you can basically just put half of the volume in there. So it might be good if you have a especially expensive resin, or just a small amount of resin, and that could still allow you to print a tall part. Not big in X and Y, but tall. And since it's interchangeable, maybe there is even a use for it, and you don't have like a separate machine with just 2 print pads. I don't know. I find it's one of the, as you just said, one of the more unnecessary inventions.
Chris Russell actually posted the Frozen Transformer, which apparently was a machine that you could swap a dual 5.5-inch panel into, or swap a 1 10-inch. I guess it would be a bit larger than 10-inch then, where you could change between those. At least I've not looked into it. The photo looks like it does that. But in that case, I'm like, well, if you have to change the screen, or if your machine from the start just has 2 individual panels, like at that point, I'm really starting to question like whether you need that in one machine, or just getting 2 individual machines. I think would be the better choice versus just having one with 2 panels. Yeah.
The thing that might be interesting, maybe even going a step further, having a system like that, but with like a print platform that maybe could swivel to the side and go into like an IPA bath, where you could print your part with one color, a layer, then go into the, for example, IPA, clean off the resin, and then get that to into a different vat. And if you are probably setting that up right, you could do multicolor prints on a Resin 3D printer. It will be way more complex.
Oh, but if you, I guess by layer you could do that. But if you have to wash your part after every layer, I think that's gonna be super wasteful. You're gonna be.
It might be super wasteful.
A lot of. I love the way you say that. Oh yeah, it might be super wasteful. Like who cares? I mean, sure, you could do it, but like getting all the resin off of your vats and off your model, you're gonna saturate your IPA so quickly, and you're gonna be wasting so much resin, probably more than you're printing with.
Of course. Well, maybe you have a system where you don't fill your vat all the way to the top, and you're just only always dipping it into a small puddle, so that you don't saturate your print that much. Of course, it will be wasteful, but I have seen any multicolor 3D printer, Resin 3D printers yet. I'm quite sure that a system like that might already be patented by somebody, but for special applications, that would be a possibility to do multi-material or multicolor Resin 3D printing.
Yeah, just add, so on the 2 vats, just add like an X-axis to it, and just or on the 2 platforms, just have one platform, add an X-axis, so you can move between the 2, and then move into a cleaning tank.
Yeah,
could work. Perhaps that's an even more necessary invention than the dual platform Saturn.
As I said, I think that this would not be something for everyone, but there are special applications. The question in the end is, there are other 3D printing techniques that might be able to do different things, but I'm quite sure that you could make a system that works for not $1,000 because you just need to add an x-axis. So that might still be beneficial to, for example, a 100K or 500K specialized 3D printer for doing something similar.
Yeah, and at that point it doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm kind of excited about the Form 3. It's sitting outside that door right now.
Oh, you have one?
I got one. I got it in a couple of days ago. It's really going to be interesting to see where that fits in, because the reason I bring it up is because it has that auto filling vat feature, where it keeps the resin topped up. I've not taken a look. I've not taken too deep of a look at what it does and what it can and can't do and how it works. All I've read is that it's supposed to be super slow, even compared to the Form 2. So that's going to be an interesting thing to try out, and just trying out a whole different ecosystem of software, hardware, or features that they're implementing. It's going to be real interesting.
And since like the 3D, even though you're using basically the same resin, the way that a Formlabs printer is printing in comparison to a mask SLA printer, I think that's going to be really interesting, because you have a laser that is moving around in the vat. So you will have different layer times depending on how much parts you have on your model, and that's going to be interesting. Also, comparing the details you can get with a Formlabs printer, because with like the new 4K and 8K, I don't know, masked SLA printers, the voxel size is, I think, way smaller than the resin. The Formlabs printer has 80 or 90 micrometers diameter of the laser spot. So that's gonna change the printing resolution maybe a bit in XY.
Yeah. So I'm just looking up the what's it called, Frozen Mini 8K. So that's a 7.1 inch, so Saturn size, 8K LCD. So voxel size or 2D pixel size would be 22 microns.
Okay.
Which isn't that much smaller than the like 40, 50 micron size that you get on your regular mask LCD ones. And with the mask LCD printers, I find that anti-aliasing is much more of an indicator of quality. And now with the Prusa SL1, it's actually proven that your light source quality also very much determines how good of a resolution you can resolve.
Yeah, and with like a laser that is moved with a Galvo scanner, you don't have the problem anymore with aliasing.
Yeah, because you're getting essentially the same as with a filament printer.
FDM3D printer.
Yeah, we have it's the same technique. You've got your infill, you've got your walls. It's the same stuff. But yeah, the laser spot size on Form 3 is 85 micron. So it's probably going to have, it's definitely going to have smoother surfaces, but detail resolution is going to be interesting, because it should be worse technically than a mask LCD printer. Form 2 had a 140 micron laser spot size, so that is quite big. That is reaching into like filament printer nozzle diameter size.
Cool. Yeah. Looking forward to your thoughts on that.
That's. Just to close that out, that smaller laser spot size is what I've heard the reason why the Form 3 actually prints slower than the Form 2. 85 micron versus 140, that's smaller nozzle size. Takes more time.
Yeah.
Right. And last topic, just quickly, Rotating Vat 3D printer. So this is basically a poor man's clip process. So clip is the process from Carbon 3D, where you don't basically the trick is to not stick your cured resin layers onto the FEP. That's one of the challenges with your regular mask LCD, and why you have that peeling motion, and why the SL1 has that tilting peeling motion that speeds things up. But if you never get your cured resin to stick to the FEP film that sits over your masking LCD, you don't have to worry about peeling. So who actually made this? Do we have a name?
Eric
Potempa. So Eric actually created something where he has a revolving vat, and an FEP film that continuously moves out underneath your printed part.
Mm-hmm. Eric didn't use an FEP film. He used a rigid PDMS, which is a polymer surface that was the base of his vat.
Polydimethylsiloxane. I love polymer names. So yeah, I guess the trick with the film that Carbon is using is that it's letting through some oxygen. And if I guess the resins that they're using, if those resins are in contact with oxygen, they don't cure, they don't harden. So they can always keep that one layer of uncured resin between their release film and the actual printed part, so they can continuously pull away the material. And I guess PDMS does that as well?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know if it was just a convenient use, but he's stating that he's always like dragging new material into like the small slit that is generated. And the thing is, with that method, he's able to print 280 millimeters of a part per hour,
which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is. I mean, the SL1S was already at the point where I'm like, this is faster than any filament printer for the quality, for sure. But 280 millimeters an hour, that is insane. Because of course you still have the same energy you're putting into the resin to cure it, but you don't have to spend that time for peeling it every cycle. Yeah. We don't know the whole technology behind that, obviously. But if this doesn't get patented, and if this gets put into an actual product, it's pretty good. It could honestly displace a lot of the techniques and technologies that we see in 3D printing in general. If you just have that massive advantage of like, oh, you click print and 5 minutes later you have your part, and not 5 hours later.
Yeah. And with a really good resolution. It's cool. It's really cool to see that.
This is still a masked LCD. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter which process it. Though, to be honest,
I think he's using a DLP.
Okay.
Would it work with a laser? I think it's not such a good idea. He's using, I think, a DLP. I read on Reddit. But you can check that.
Should work with laser, yeah. But DLP is also a process that exposes the entire layer at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
pretty cool process.
Yeah, we're gonna have the Hackaday link.
And I guess way easier to implement than the reverse CT scanning methods that we have also already seen.
Yeah, though those were a concept. Those were an idea. Those weren't actually being implemented.
Yeah.
I've got a video about those, or about Adrian's idea of using like the electro current hardening thing. Well, no, hold on, but are you talking about the the thing that Adrian is proposing by hardening resins with electricity, with current, or the
no
the revolving?
Exactly, the revolving thing where you shine light through.
That I've also got a video on that. I think I've got the recording of the talk at some show that I recorded once. Yeah, and obviously, exactly, yeah. And obviously, this process with the revolving PDMS film, it's not limited in geometry, because the reverse CT, though theoretically I guess you could print a lot more stuff than you would think, but it does have its limitations as to what geometry you can actually create with it.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Cool stuff. And I guess that's it for today.
That's all the cool stuff we have for today.
If my voice is getting better, I'm always saying that I really hope to be that we are going to be back sooner again. But yeah, no questions for today. So I guess thank you for your time, Tom.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Stefan. Viewers and listeners, if you have questions that we should answer, leave them in the YouTube comments or tweet them at us at the Meltzone. We do have at the Meltzone. Yeah, we don't have at the Meltzone podcast. We did get that Twitter handle right.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you want to support us, you can do so on Patreon or YouTube memberships on our channels if you want to do that. But otherwise, yeah, recommend it, the podcast to a friend if you find it interesting. That would be awesome. Until then, we will see you all and hear you all next time. I was going to say next week, but next time. Thanks for the time,
Bye-bye.
Stefan. Bye, everyone.